So when you ask me, like, who's really running these things, what at the very end of the day, like at the very end, the last, who's running everything? God, the creator, created all of this. Now, what's happening in this current experience we're having? It appears like in this creation, there's been all kinds of other like really nefarious things created. And they're basically like what you call evil or bad. And they like to live off of, like parasites, like those elite people. They like to live off of our energy, of our pain and all that kind of stuff. And those are likely not on the human dimension because there's numerous different dimensions here in this matrix. And, even if you talk to like a religious person who believes in the organized sort of religion, they'll talk about Satan. And that's a good way to kind of put it. It's an entity from outside of this dimension that we can see that is controlling a lot of things in this world.
Broaderlands Podcast.
The opinions expressed on Broaderlands Podcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlands Podcast.
Jeff, welcome to Broaderlands Podcast. What an honor to have you on.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I heard you on Kim's channel and you blew my mind when I listened to you talk, and you gave me a lot of confirmation. So I really appreciate your insights, and it might be thought-provoking for some people, but I love that. It's how we expand our mind and our collective consciousness.
Yeah, I'd actually kind of feel bad if I talked for an hour and I didn't provoke any thoughts.
For those who may not be familiar with your work, can you briefly share who you are and what awakened you to these deeper truths about who really rules or runs the system?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess it all started when I had an internet company in the 1990s, and it went from like out of my house to having 250 staff. It was worth $250 million at one point before the tech bubble collapsed. And after the tech bubble collapsed, someone gave me the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, and it's huge. It's like a phone book. But I read it all in like less than a week, and it opened my eyes completely to how the central banking system works and how the money system works and things like that. And then the part of the reason why the tech bubble collapsed was 9/11, which I found out not immediately because back then, I was still watching things like CNN and stuff back in 2001. But around 2003, I realized what happened there. And that also blew my mind. I was like, oh, they're doing like false flag attacks, and it's the government actually doing it, and things like that. So that sent me down like massive rabbit holes. So first of all, I realized how basically the financial system, the monetary system, and central banking, and who's behind all that, and why that exists, and how it does, and why it's mostly a big scam to impoverish and enslave people. And then I started to realize that what we're told on the television programming, and it's called programming for a reason, is not the truth. And I realized that around 2003. And I went down pretty much every rabbit hole you can imagine. Since then, I still am to this day. I still find things all the time. I'm like, oh, that wasn't true either. Oh, that's totally a lie, and stuff like that. I started a thing called the Dollar Vigilante in 2009 because I realized that most people didn't know how all this stuff worked in the financial markets and the money system and things like that. And I thought I'd be a great person to help tell people about stuff like that, and also to help them to not only survive it, but also profit from it, which we've been doing for quite a long time. I actually recommended Bitcoin at $3. It's currently $80,000. So things like that. Gold as well. We've been recommending gold ever since we started. When we started, I think it was around $700. It's now $3,000. It's at all-time highs right now. So not only are we helping people to realize how this whole system works, but also to profit from it. So I've been doing that. Along the way, I became very, very interested in anarcho-capitalist type ideas, libertarian type things. To me, that just rang true as the best way for humans to organize themselves, which is actually with no organization, but it all happens naturally. And so I started a podcast called Anarcast, and then that led to me starting a event called Anarchapulco, which just had its 11th annual event this year, going on our 12th next year, where we have a lot of the top freedom and truth sort of speakers in the world speaking at that event. And yeah, so nowadays, a lot of the time, like most people know me because I walk with my dogs and I just talk about what I think's happening in the world. And I've been kicked off of most platforms because of it.
You mean we don't have freedom of speech?
Well, I do. I'm speaking, but they don't. They'll do everything they can to try to make it so people can't find out the truth. So I'm like I'm banned on. I've been banned on YouTube for a long time, although we snuck back on again a few months ago. I'm banned still on FBI book, Facebook. I'm on X, but massively shadow banned, and that's what they said is you have freedom of speech on X. You can say whatever you want, but they'll make it so if you say certain things that most people will never ever see it. So that's been generally the case for the entire time I've been talking about these things publicly. Is I get shut down almost everywhere in every single way. Bank accounts closed, all kinds of problems because of the things I talk about. And the funny thing is, mostly what I talk about is just don't hurt other people. It's a lot of the stuff that Jesus said, actually, which is kind of funny because they kind of killed him too, right? For just saying basic things. And the one thing that Jesus kind of got angry about and actually got violent a little bit was with the central banks, with the money exchangers, and that's what I also point out as well.
That's awesome. You know, the term anarchy, we often hear these terms and we're conditioned to believe like those words are scary or we create images from our conditioning. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's done on purpose. So whenever there's a riot or something really terrible happens, they always make sure to say on the mainstream media, the television programming, that, it's anarchy here. Anarchy the word actually is a Greek word, and it means an, without, archy, rulers. So you would think that a lot of people would think that's a great idea to not be slaves, because if you have a ruler, then you're a slave. So basically, if you say you believe in anarchy, you don't believe that people should be slaves. And the fact that so many people, even still to this day, although that is changing, think that anarchists are bad or that anarchy is a bad thing is just goes to show how well they've done on keeping most people under massive levels of mind control.
I remember talking to Jordan Maxwell before he passed away and had a good conversation over a weekend with him. And I remember talking to him about, he talks about how democracy, and it means mob rules. And you talk about how government means mind control. I'd love for you to touch on that briefly.
Yeah, well, the word government comes from Latin, which has two sort of roots in it. Govern, which is gubernare, I believe, and ment, which if you speak Spanish or any Latin language, means mind. Gubernare means to control. So government, the meaning of the word is mind control. And that's basically what it is, because it's an idea on how to enslave people that they've kept like incredibly hidden with all their mind control tricks. To the point that people think it's actually a natural part of life now to have a government, to be ruled by someone. And many people actually do also, many people actually like being slaves. Even though they don't know they're slaves, they actually like that they are. Because a lot of people don't actually want to take responsibility for their own lives, and they like feeling like someone's taking care of them, like mommy and daddy, and that's sort of what this whole government sort of thing has done for centuries now, and it's completely sort of an evil thing, because if you think about what a government is. A government is a entity of people, so it's just people who say they control a certain area, even though they don't really have any right to that area. They just, over time, and certain things happen, they wrote down some documents and they said, this is our area. That's, what we control, and we're in charge here, and that sort of a thing. And how do they make their money? Well, all money that the government makes is stolen. It's extorted. It's called taxes, or now tariffs and things like that. So it's a criminal organization that just extorts and steals from people, and it also uses violence. So it says, here's the things you have to do or not do, and if you do things that we say you can't do, we'll come and kidnap you and put you into a cage. And many of those things, most of them actually, in places like the land of the free in the U.S., are crimes that no one actually got hurt. So it's things like having a plant. So if you have some marijuana, or it used to be, some of the laws are changing now, but so many of those laws are just victimless sort of things. So what you have is an organization that lives on extortion, theft, and violence. And when you have that, and it's become such it's everywhere in our lives today in most places in the world, what it actually creates is a culture of when you have a thing that's sort of organizing the entire society, and it's based on violence and theft, you will have a very negative sort of culture. It will just it will not turn out well, and that's what we're actually seeing in so many ways all across the world. And things like democracy, as you talked about with Jordan Maxwell, I call it demoncracy. It's so ingenious, but so nefarious as well, that they've managed to fool people to think that they control the government by going once every 4 or 5 years into a closet with a shower curtain and pressing a button on a voting machine, usually made in Israel. And you get to choose between sometimes a red elephant or a blue donkey, and people think, because of that they're in charge of this criminal organization when they're clearly not. And of course they say, well, you have to vote for certain people, and then they'll go in and they'll do things, and those people make all kinds of promises, and they get paid off, and then they never do any of the things they said they were going to do. And then people say, well, I guess we just have to wait 4 more years. So it's an incredible enslavement system. The good news is that most of these governments, including the U.S. government, are completely bankrupt and insolvent at this point, thanks to the money system, which is all a debt-based money system based on central banking. So a lot of this stuff's all going to collapse in the next few years, and we'll see what happens after that. That's definitely going to be interesting times for the next few years.
Yeah, thank you. The term globalist elites is often used, but in your view, who are they really, and how do they operate behind the scenes, influence our global systems, our politics, media, and finance?
Well, I should just start by saying they call themselves elites. I call them parasites. They are the worst of humanity, and they want to control humanity. They want to enslave humanity. That's what all their systems are all about. Who are those people? Well, there's so many different... it's been going on for centuries or millennia or longer, and some people even speculate that they're Nephilim, which is kind of interesting. That's a whole other long story, but a lot of them today call themselves Jews, actually, which is kind of interesting because in the Bible, as one place, it talks about a synagogue of Satan, and it's people who say they're Jews but they're not. And they're the most evil people ever. And that's actually in the Bible, so that's interesting. Now you have a lot of these people say that they're Jews, including people like Donald Trump, who's basically married. All of his kids are Jewish. Elon Musk says he's not Jewish, but he says everyone he knows is Jewish, and he calls himself Jew-ish. Many of these people, the Rothschilds, for example, call themselves Jewish. They're not really. A lot of those people, actually, their family lines come from a place called Khazaria, which is where the Ukraine is today. And that's actually part of the reason for what's going on in the Ukraine today. And Israel, which was a Rothschild, basically a thing. They wanted to start up their own country. They said it's for Jewish people, but it's actually basically for them. And they are some of the most evil people in the world. And those are the people kind of that we see running a lot of the stuff today, those kinds of people. But I would hesitate to say it's like one group. There's so many different nefarious groups out there. There's the Jesuits, there's the Freemasons, which I think in some ways in the past might have been good, but now they're not. Then there's all the other organizations like that, the Club of Rome, the Technocrats, which is actually Elon Musk's grandfather started that in Canada 100 years ago, which is pretty insane. And but I hesitate to call them like any one thing or word. I just look at their actions, and if their actions are basically evil, and by evil I mean they intend to harm others and enslave them or impoverish them through their actions, then I'm against them. So sometimes people call me anti-Semitic, which doesn't make any sense because I'm not against Semitic people, and most of these people aren't Semitic. So I like to point out that if you want to call me a word, you could like I actually don't like any of these words too much. But if you wanted to like call me something, you could say I'm kind of anti-satanic. I'm against all these people that are doing all of these evil things, like what we're seeing in Israel today, with Gaza and Palestine. What they've been doing in so many different ways for centuries. I'm against those things. The money system, how it's set up, is a complete and total impoverishment and a scam to basically make it so the very, very few elite who are parasites get most of the capital, and the rest of the people are left with scraps based on their debt-based system. So I'm against anything that's like that. But even to add to that, though, I would say I'm not really against anything. What I am, though, is pointing out all these things and trying to let people know there's a much, much better way that the world can be if they can wake up from a lot of their mind control and also take responsibility and actually become and remember who they really are. Most people have been so traumatized and government indoctrinated, 12 years of government indoctrination camps, television programming, they're under mind control. That's all to make it so they forget who they really are. And what they really are is basically a light being capable of basically anything, but they've been pigeonholed and mind controlled and indoctrinated and traumatized down. That a lot of people think that they're just nothing now. And that's all part of the system.
Do you believe the Rockefellers are part of that as well? I feel like they created this recovery matrix where no one really gets healed and they make all this money.
Oh, absolutely. The Rockefellers started this whole medicine system, which is another complete and total fraud. That's if you look at the world today, you look at most people, they're not doing that well. And most of it's, not all, but most of it's from the medical system. All of these vaccines and all these things, these are actually there to make you sick, to make you infertile, to even kill you, stuff like that. And yeah, that's all. They're in the same sort of what you could call group or mindset of people of wanting to destroy humanity for profit, essentially. And that's what we've seen from the entire medical system. And we have, the people should realize their bodies heal themselves. All you need to do is actually just treat it good. So like drink good, clean water, eat clean, good food, which is really hard nowadays because they're poisoning almost everything, whether it's the GMOs or the vaccines in the food supply now, or the Monsanto, or the fluoride in the water. And like, there's so many different levels to it. But if you can get away from all those things, and you can, and you do the right things, you can be basically in perfect health. There's no need for these millions and millions of pharmaceuticals. In fact, every single one of them causes usually far worse than the thing that they're trying to solve.
I asked that question because they had their hands in AA before it even really got launched, and I think they figured a way to make all this money on people in the addiction road and recovery. So and we're taught to say we're an alcoholic. Like church, you're taught to call yourself a sinner. Keeps you on a lower frequency, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah, if you look, there's people like that. Their hands are on so many things in this world.
Yeah, It's crazy. Do you believe these so-called world leaders are aware of this hidden hand, or are they just playing a role in a system they don't fully understand?
Most of them are actually trained and raised for exactly what they're doing, including Trump. He's been raised and trained his entire life. He trained as a Jesuit. You look at Barack Drone Bomber. He was basically raised. Well, he's son of a billionaire, and he was basically raised by Henry Kissinger. What are the odds of that? You look at all of these people. Zelensky was an actor who actually one of his roles was he was a comedian or actor who in the TV show became the president of the Ukraine. That was like 10 years ago, so he was prepared for that. Donald Trump was already preparing in the World Wrestling Federation type stuff as an actor. He's got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. All of these people are generally what you could call actors. And by actors, I don't mean like they're reading necessarily everything off a script, but they're put there for a certain role. And that's why you can definitely call them actors. And that role oftentimes is just who they are. But they are pushing forward certain agendas on behalf of the people that control them. And that's pretty much every so-called world leader in the world. You even look at Vladimir Putin. He's a World Economic Forum young global leader. Of course, there's Justin Castro in the U.S., and he's actually the son of Fidel Castro. Like this is like then you have Macron in France, and he's married to actually his groomer, who's a man who dresses like a woman, who's like 20 years older than him. A lot of these people have actually been people like Bill Gates and all of them. They've all been under. They're basically born into a sort of a satanic secret society type group, and they're massively traumatized under MK mind control, all those sort of things. So yes, all the people that you see on the world stage, and it is a stage, and even Shakespeare said that, and Shakespeare probably didn't even exist, and that's probably all lies. But it really is, and I definitely would never call any of them leaders. At the very most, they're misleaders. They're there to mislead people, keep them enslaved, do everything to continue to enslave and impoverish them even more. That is really their roles. A true leader actually would always just lead by example. And none of these people, there's nothing to learn from their example. They're some of the worst people in the world. But again, the thing is that people have been trained to think they need a leader. And now, of course, you can have a true leader who would just be someone who's leading by example, and then you decide you want to follow that person because they're so unbelievable and incredible and so virtuous and so perfect in so many different ways. But that's not the case today. A lot of people think that they need to choose a leader, and it's always whatever they have the options are, it's always going to lead to the same sort of system, just with some minor differences on one side or the other, which they keep flipping back and forth with, which actually if people don't understand how the whole system works, there's an excellent movie called The Jones Plantation. It's on Apple TV. It's on Amazon Prime. It's at jonesplantationfilm.com. And it's a movie about a slave colony or whatever you call them in the 18 or 1700s. And it really does an incredible job of showing you how this whole system works without actually saying it. And what happens is, as you're watching it, you begin to realize that you yourself are on a plantation, and this entire structure has been set up to keep you enslaved. And it's actually one of the best ways for what I would call normies, people who haven't woke up to a lot of this stuff, to begin to wake up.
Yeah, thank you. Both political parties you see in America, they're arguing amongst one another, constantly putting each other down, speaking victimese, blaming the next party, thinking they're right and the other person is wrong. Is this all done organically, or is it a part of a larger strategy to keep people distracted and divided?
At the highest level, it's all on purpose. They make sure that, and they have to have two sides, because if it was just one, it'd be a little bit more obvious, right? If you couldn't even choose one, right? So they make sure they control both sides, and they make one quite extreme in certain areas and the other one quite extreme in other areas. And then they let people kind of bounce back and forth. Once one gets too horrible on one side, people go, oh, let's choose that other side, and they'll be a little better. And they are, in some ways, a little better, and then people feel all relieved. And then after 4 years, it gets so horrible that And actually, even the 4 year and the 8 years type thing, like that's all psychologically like pre-planned to. That's about the limit that people can handle. They've figured this. So this has been going on. I don't know how long. For probably millennia in various ways. Like even the whole democracy sort of a thing is just a flip of how they used to do the whole royalty type stuff. And people started to wake up to the royalty stuff. It's like, this guy said he found a sword in a lake, so now you owe him a lot of your money, and he'll beat you if you do certain things. And a few hundred years ago, some people said, this doesn't make any sense. These people don't have any authority to do these things to me. So they changed it, and how they changed and how it happened. That's a whole long story. But over time, they changed it to, well, let's tell them they're in control, and we'll let them vote. And that's why I say watch the Jones Plantation, and you'll really see it becomes crystal clear how the whole system works. Because you can't really see it necessarily if you haven't really thought about these things. I mean, deeply for a long time. But in a 2-hour movie, it all will actually make sense. It all start to like click in your brain, and you go, oh, that's how it's all been set up.
Yeah, I'm going to have to watch that. Thank you. Would you say propaganda is designed differently for each political group? That way it's easier to press certain buttons to reinforce division?
Yeah, like everything is propaganda when it comes from the government or the mainstream media, which is just an arm of the government. I think most people have realized that now. I think before the COVIDs, a lot of people still didn't know that. But after watching for 5 years, them lying constantly and trying to get people to inject themselves with poison, I think a lot of people started to wake up to that. But then they got them right back in. They said, oh, well, someone's coming to save you. Oh, another savior is coming. Who is it? Oh, it's Donald Trump, who was the president like 8 years ago. But there's, what was it, 8 years ago or 4 years, whatever it was. And didn't do any of the things that he said he was going to do then. Now he's coming back to save everyone. And this time he's got Elon Musk, and he's going to save you. And people fell for it again. People are very easy to fool, unfortunately. And yeah, so they'll push all the Biden stuff, and that'll be all the just insane stuff. Let's have trannies go to elementary schools and do lap dances to kids, and then enough people go, this is too horrible. Then they go, oh, this guy says that's bad, and then he gets in, and what does he do on the very second day of being president? He announces a $500 billion mRNA AI vaccine center. A lot of people thought he was going to come in and put people like Dr. Fauci and Albert Bourla of Pfizer in jail. No, and I said all this, by the way. I've been saying this for a long time. But they just bring in a new person, and they'll do some things differently, and that makes some people happy. They're like, well, at least that stuff stopped. And then these people will do something even worse. And then it just goes back and forth. And this is just a recurring sad loop that who was it? The Guess Who, I think, wrote a song about we won't get fooled again. Well, I'm waiting until the point when finally people won't get fooled again. And I think we are actually getting closer to that. I think after this Trump one, I think most should have figured it out at this point. Although I've already seen them. They're like, well, all these Trump people, they're like, oh, he's going to be so amazing. Then he gets in, he doesn't do any of the things he said, didn't release the Epstein files, didn't do any of the stuff he said. He said he was going to stop all the wars. Now he's having more wars. He just spent $1 trillion on the military, all this sort of stuff. Brought in RFK Jr., said that he was going to get rid of all the vaccines and put all these people in jail. He hasn't done anything. He's actually been promoting the measles vaccine since he's been in, and the pandemic and anti-Semitism, which doesn't even make any sense. And so some people have sort of said, oh, I guess we got fooled again. And then I see them, they're like, well, we'll just have to wait till 2028, and this time we'll vote for this person. It's like, you'll never vote yourself out of slavery. That's the only thing I can say, because the whole system is an enslavement system. So no matter who runs it, unless they shut it down, you're still going to be a slave.
What's your take on RFK? Because, to make America healthy again, we got to start looking how we treat each other, talk to each other, respect each other. I mean, that's the first thing I think we need to do. And I don't really see him standing up for any of that.
Well, that's all the rhetoric of politics, right? We have to change in this way and all this sort of stuff. But what is he really doing? Basically nothing. still allowing. There's still little babies being injected with dozens of horrible vaccines right at this very moment. I, I fully expected that. He's actually in bed. Like his family is the Kennedy family. They are a political family in the U.S. A ton of them are in Congress. JFK did get killed. If I don't necessarily believe anything, but it's possible that that's what happened. And he actually spoke out about basically these sort of globalist types, the secret societies. That was like his last speech before they blew his head off. So JFK might have actually been a decent guy, but they took him out, and that's all these people do. It's sort of like the Hunger Games. They're all in the Capitol, and they all have, like, they're all friends. Like, Donald Trump is best friends with the Clintons, no matter what he says in public in front of the cameras. Like he'd said the last time before he was president. He said as soon as he's president, Hillary's going to go to jail. And then he got selected president, and the very first thing he said was, someone said, "Are you going to put Hillary in jail?" And he said, "No, we're old friends." These are just liars, snakes, and con men, and they all are. And it just continues on. RFK Jr. is no different whatsoever. None of these people are anything good. None of them. If they're involved in the government, that's a pretty good sign that they're not good people. Not to say that you couldn't necessarily have a good person get in, but the chances of them actually getting anywhere in the government is basically zero, which we kind of saw with Ron Paul in 2008. So he was a decent person. He was actually what we would call, like, he's very close to being an anarchist. He's said a few times that basically he is an anarchist. So he doesn't believe in slavery. He also understands economics. He said we need to shut down the Federal Reserve, get rid of the income tax, all these sort of things. He ran for president in 2008. He was filling football stadiums because the message of freedom, the message of truth and freedom, when spoken in the right places, gets massive amount of interest. So he filled football stadiums, and then they did every single thing they could, like in every way you can imagine, to make sure he never got in, to even have a chance. He wasn't even selected as the candidate for the Republicans, even though he was filling football stadiums. And I think, who was it? Mitt Romney or someone got it instead. And he couldn't even fill like a high school cafeteria for his things. And that's how they do it. This system is a very well-run system, under control by these people that, in general, these types of people have been doing this for centuries or millennia, and they're very, very good at what they do.
Yeah, when I started studying Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's nephew, who wrote Propaganda, I'm like, holy shit, this shit's deep, And, once the mainstream thinking becomes aware of the basics of propaganda, there's so much ahead using many layers of propaganda for propaganda. And I feel intuitively like, I don't call myself either a Republican or Democrat. I just care about people as a whole. But do you feel that now they're using like the Trump regime, acting like they're going to be the saviors, and now they're going to expose propaganda, but that's just another layer of propaganda?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. In fact, Edward Bernays' grandchildren are the people who run Netflix now. So Mark Zuckerberg, for example, runs FBI Book. He's a Rothschild. All of these people come from these secret society families. Bill Gates as well. And Elon Musk was basically, his grandfather was the technocratic party leader in Canada 100 years ago. And when you think about that technocracy 100 years ago, there was barely even like television or like any technology. But they've been doing these things, these sort of groups, these secret societies, these families for a long, long, long time. That's why I kind of say it might even lead back to them being Nephilim, which might have came out of Atlantis, and they were sort of the bad Atlanteans and stuff like that. And they're still running a lot of the things in this world. So, yeah, all these things are all completely controlled. Donald Trump, yeah, they brought in the fake assassination attempt. That was so fake.
Yeah, it looks fake to me.
Yeah, it just ticked his ear, and he went down, and then he comes up, and he's got like a little bit of ketchup on his face, and he's telling everyone to fight, and he's never actually brought that up too much since, which is not like Donald Trump. He's usually very braggadocious about everything, and he's usually like, You would think you'd go, because if you actually look into what happened that day, that was completely all staged. So none of Trump's campaign rallies had been broadcast live in the mainstream media up until that point, until he was in Butler, Pennsylvania. And all of a sudden, the BBC was there doing it live. All the mainstream media was live. If you look into it, the person they said was the shooter. It couldn't have been that person. Actually came from a different angle. And then when you look into it, it wasn't even probably even well, it wasn't that person, and it wasn't from that location. Now, a lot of people will say, well, yeah, but someone got shot in the crowd, so it must have been real. That could have been real, and that's what they do. That's what they did in 9/11 as well. They'll like shoot someone in the crowd. They'll have Donald go down, put some ketchup on his face, and he's in the World Wrestling Federation. This should be pretty obvious to most people. He's actually been on a World Wrestling thing with another wrestler in the last year, and they were talking about the assassination attempt. And Trump was talking to him just like he was talking to another wrestler. He's like, yeah, I couldn't make it look too real. Like, this stuff's out there. Like, this is very obvious, all this stuff. But people just, a lot of it's just the mind control of the television programming. That stuff is literally mind control. All the patents for the television and stuff like that is all how to get you into a trance state. All the graphics on the CNN and, we got a Wolf Blitzer situation room, bling, 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 bling. Donald Trump has just been shot, and all the colors, the red and the blue and all that kind of stuff. That's all to put you into a trance state to mind control you. And all this stuff is all that. Like, people should really just turn off. I can't believe they even still have it. The last time I had a television that I watched was probably around 9/11, 2001. And I haven't had one since. And I think that's part of the reason that I've been able to kind of see what's going on, because that's one level of mind control I haven't been under for like the last 20 years.
Yeah, I love that. Does he even have a scar on his ear?
No. No, it was the most miraculous thing. It just ticked it. This big bullet, which a lot of people say, if one of those bullets from the gun they said it was just even ticked your ear, it would blow it off just from like the force of the size of the bullet, and the movement, and all that. It would totally blow it off. But no, he had that little plastic thing on for like 5 days. Took it off. Everything's fine. Because there was no bullet. There was no bullet that went by his head. That was completely and totally staged, just like they do so many things like that. Even this year or last year on 60 Minutes on the television programming, they had a Mossad agent on, and they gave him like a fake voice and everything. And he actually explained how they do all this stuff. He said that basically Mossad, which is basically in CIA and Mossad are the same thing. They're the same sort of group. And he said Mossad is the producer, the director, and the actors of basically every major world event. And that includes 9/11. That includes the moon landing, which they didn't do. It's all these things. They produce, direct, and even act. And they have actors in them. And most people still think a lot of this stuff's real.
Yeah, and they posed perfectly for that scene. That famous picture, kind of like the Sands of Iwo Jima. Was it that war where they're lifting up the flag perfectly? Well, kind of like Trump.
And the photographer, because a lot of people were actually questioning it, which is great. So finally people are starting to wake up. So some people said, I wonder if this was staged. And so they said, one of the photographers, you could see the bullet in the photo. First of all, to film that at that speed and actually get the bullet is like a 1 in a trillion sort of a chance. And it's actually barely even technologically possible. But the person who got it was the exact same photographer who was there when George W. Bush was reading his little story about goats when 9/11 happened, and he heard about it, although he knew very well. They might not have even told him, but his dad knew about it. His dad was there watching it with the bin Laden family from across the river. And it was the same photographer who caught the bullet in midair. And it's just unbelievable. But I have to say, they do an incredible job. You have to realize they've got trillions of dollars that they've stolen from everyone to do all these productions. So these are high level, well done productions. They've got most angles covered. But even with all of that, anyone who looks into any of these things, like the moon landing, for example, 9/11, for example, so many things like that. if you just look into it, you can still find dozens or hundreds of things that show that it was obviously not what they said it was.
Yeah, thank you. What happened to Alex Jones and all these big platforms like Joe Rogan and Russell Brand? I mean, their whole thought process shifted within the last few years, and it seemed like the only person that has stayed true to himself is David Icke, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can tell who the controlled opposition people are because they will get hundreds of millions of views. People like the Tate brothers, they're like Greta Thunberg. Every week they're getting arrested for something like, look, the system's trying to take us down, and they're back in their Lamborghinis the next day and all that kind of stuff. All these people. Here's the thing: if you have a podcast or you're trying to tell people some of the truth, and you're worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and you get hundreds of millions or billions of views, you are being promoted by the system. That's just how you can tell, because people like myself, I've been talking about this stuff for 15 years. You can't find me anywhere. You can maybe find me on BitChute. That's about it. And most people don't know where that is. And I actually just got blocked in the UK the other day. So that's how you can know. David Icke, I have to say, I've met him a few times. I followed his work for decades now. I call him the original gangster of all this stuff, although there's a bunch of others as well, like Jordan Maxwell and Bill Cooper and stuff like that. Yeah, Alex Jones, I've never actually met in person. He says, because they have to, a lot of these people, Joe Rogan, all these sort of people, Russell Brand, all these kind of people, they have to say some true stuff, but otherwise no one would really listen to them. It's like, well, he's not telling me anything new or different or whatever. So they'll tell you some true stuff, but they won't tell you the whole truth. And that's what's called controlled opposition. And that's basically what it looks like Alex Jones is, because it was really interesting because he actually did the whole thing about Sandy Hook, which was completely fabricated. That was another complete production by the CIA, FBI, and Mossad. And he exposed that, which was great. And he showed, and it was very obvious, like incredibly obvious. In fact, most of the kids that they say died at Sandy Hook were actually singing at the Super Bowl like 5 years later. They had them all on at halftime to sing. You had one of the kids' dad who was laughing, and they caught it on tape, and then they put him live on CNN, and he just starts crying and all this kind of stuff. So that was very obviously a completely contrived event, and Alex Jones pointed that out. And then I think they did this all on purpose. So they said, okay, we'll make Alex look like he's the fall guy here. We'll say the government's really going after him for exposing this, which will actually serve a few different purposes. One is that a lot of people who are thinking about exposing these sort of things will be very scared to do so, because look what they did to Alex Jones. So they put Alex Jones through years of always going bankrupt. Every week he'd be on. He's like, they're about to come in and shut us down, guys. Buy my vitamins and, support us here, send us donations. And they never shut him down. And then Trump gets in, and now everything's fine. And now what's he doing? Completely promoting the Trump regime, which is doing all the most evil stuff, supporting this Gaza genocide, trying to start World War III with Iran, so many different things, doing the mRNA, AI vaccines, all this sort of stuff. So he's basically controlled opposition. And now his side is to promote the Trump side, which a lot of these guys are doing now. But again, you can tell who very easily. If they've got hundreds of millions of views and hundreds of millions of dollars, they're not anti-system whatsoever. They're in with the system. And it's very, very clear.
I can't get past this behavior, dehumanizing people, calling people illegal aliens. And I just don't like the behavior. He seems like a traumatized little boy to me, still trying to prove to Freddie that he's a somebody, because deep down inside he feels like a nobody. And addicted to power and money.
He's also said that his whole family were in the CIA and also Freemasons. So he's come from a long line of people that are basically in these sort of globalist sort of enslavement secret society cults. So it would not be surprising whatsoever, because that's what they do to a lot of the children, is they will heavily traumatize them. You just look at people like Britney Spears and all that. They do that with the kids in Hollywood as well. They'll massively traumatize them to get them under MK mind control, like they just did with Ariana Grande, who has turned into just bones now. And she was just at some Grammys Awards or something just like last month, and someone asked her about something. She said, "Oh, I can't remember that." And they said, "Why?" And she said, "Oh, I go to this place every week and they erase my memory," which is what they do. So a lot of these people are actually just under MK mind control, which is way bigger than most people think. And it's incredibly, the amount of control they can put people under is incredible. And they've known this for decades. That's what the CIA and Mossad and people like that, groups like that, have been doing for a long time in these secret societies. And they actually even do it to their own children. It's a very, very evil sort of group of people that are doing these things. And Alex Jones is probably, probably was raised from the beginning in this sort of a secret society type stuff. And whether he even knows his role or not, who knows? That's the thing. He might not even know. He might be under various levels of mind control and MK stuff that he actually thinks he's actually doing really good things, even though he's promoting the very system that he says he's there to stand up against.
Yeah, thank you. Even Trump's uncle, he was one of the people that walked in Tesla's hotel room, and he pretends to be an outsider fighting for the people.
Yeah, Donald Trump, Nikola Tesla basically was rediscovering, because we knew about this stuff for millennia or hundreds of thousands of years before. The world used to be a much better place when people knew how to actually interact with essentially God's source energy, which comes through the ether and things like plasma. And that's what those old structures were for aggregating plasma. And you'd go in and you get healed, and you get connected more with source and things like that. Nikola Tesla basically rediscovered how to do all that stuff. And he was coming up with things that would have led to free energy devices. He also had already created healing machines, which basically heal almost everything. He basically got taken out by the CIA and Donald Trump's uncle. Donald Trump's uncle came to help them take all this stuff away from him, because if people had access to that technology, big oil, big pharma, the governments and the central banks themselves would all be basically gone, because we'd have like such a beautiful, peaceful, and prosperous world if people had free energy and healing devices and things like that. The great news is that all those things are actually now coming out. So we're in what I call the apocalypse right now, the lifting of the veil. They've been trying to hide this stuff for so long. So with the lifting of the veil, in my opinion, a lot of people are starting to wake up and go, holy cow, this entire world's run by like satanic pedophiles. And it's like, yeah, it is. And we're all slaves. It's like, yeah, you are. And so people are waking up to that. And at the same time, all the old technologies are coming back. Things like there's some people are doing some of the free energy stuff, but there's also the healing stuff. There's actually, I've got one. I was one of the first people to get one when I basically first heard about it a little over a year ago. I've got a Tesla machine. It's TZLA. It's at tzla.club. It's basically based on what Nikola Tesla was doing, but it's designed in sort of modern ways, and it's actually been quite massively improved upon. And we basically cure anyone of anything with this machine. It's actually even been de-aging me by like decades. I did a device just last month. I'm in human terms, I'm 54 years old. The device is a quantum biofeedback device, and it usually will give you back like what's your metabolic age, what's your tissue age, what's your energetic age, and stuff like that. And most people will get within a few years of their actual age. I'm supposedly 54 years old, but it came back that I have the tissue and metabolic age of a 30-year-old and the energy levels in my cells of a 10-year-old. And I think most of that's due to this Tesla machine. So we have this incredible time with all this tyranny, all this evil stuff going on. People are still very enslaved, but they're starting to wake up to it. They're trying to like clamp down and depopulate the earth as quickly as they can right now. There's going to be way more stuff coming. But at the same time, people are waking up. They're actually starting to get more connected to source. They're beginning to remember who they are. All the old technologies, which are natural technologies, which are so divine and so incredible, are coming back. This is like the most incredible time to be alive. And it's going to be so interesting to see what happens over the next few years.
That's awesome. I believe we're having a collective awakening. I've heard you mention this, and you just did kind of right now, and I've heard it said before, who really controls the world? Is this some outside entity, some kind of evil or alien or satanic force?
Well, I've been meditating now for about 8 years at least. And I've even gotten up to like 5 to 7 hours a day sometimes. And sometimes now I meditate in a plasma bath and with the Tesla machine. It's incredible. And with that, I get even more connected and actually get all kinds of downloads and stuff. So I've kind of come to the realization over the last few years that everything in this realm is basically what I call the matrix, which isn't really real. It feels real to us in the moment. It feels real, but it isn't really. It's like a false construct. You could almost call it like a simulation or a 3D video game or something like that. And as I've gotten more and more connected to Source, it's become very clear to me that this is something that basically Source creates to experience everything. And it's so incredible. It's like that. How incredible is the creator that can create this entire world, this entire universe, however big this universe is, and all the things in it, all that with just its own mind, basically. And so we're basically that. So when you ask me, like, who's really running these things? What at the very end of the day, like at the very end, the last, who's running everything? God, the creator, created all of this. Now, what's happening in this current experience we're having? It appears like in this creation, there's been all kinds of other like really nefarious things created. And they're basically like what you call evil or bad. And they like to live off of like parasites, like those elite people. They like to live off of our energy, of our pain and all that kind of stuff. And those are likely not on the human dimension because there's numerous different dimensions here in this matrix. And, even if you talk to like a religious person who believes in the organized sort of religion, they'll talk about Satan. And that's a good way to kind of put it. It's an entity from outside of this dimension that we can see that is controlling a lot of things in this world. So you can call it Satan, you can call it demons, you can call it, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of ways you can look at it, but definitely, absolutely there is. It's just incredible. It's just so incredible to see how, this is like the most amazing 3D video game ever. Like I still can't get over it. Like look at the colors and like even in the video game, like I don't even know where you are. I'm talking to you somewhere else in the world, and like, wow, this is so amazing. And there's these bad guys, and some of them even dress up as like real like supervillains, like Klaus Schwab with his black jacket, and he's got his German accent, and he's like, "We will make you eat the bugs," and you got Bill Gates, and he's got his sweater, and he's like trying to kill everybody, and no one can tell, and everyone's, lost, and all this kind of stuff. And, it's got like smells, it's got emotions. You can feel love, you can feel fear. Like, this is so incredible. So, yeah, who's in control of everything? God, of course. And that's the only thing that's ever existed, only thing that ever will exist, and the only thing that actually is. All of this is in basically the mind of God. And that's something that like the Vedic type people believe, the Yuga stuff. One of the people that I listen quite a bit to that really educated me a lot on this stuff is Shunyamurti of Sat Yoga. So that's what I believe this all is. And I believe it's all just, for us to experience and to have the most incredible experience ever. And we are. This is, no matter what's happening, we are. And we all get to, in the video game, we get to make our own decisions. And if we do something wrong, we have to pay for it later. It's called karma and all this kind of stuff, whether it's in this life or in some other different sort of, it's absolutely incredible. So I actually don't worry about anything whatsoever because there's nothing to worry about. At the end of the day, we're an experience that God is having in his own mind in our own little way, that we just get to see a little part of it, which is so amazing. So we're all basically running our own true man show. And to me, it's just, making the best, enjoying it as much as possible and making the best out of my personal true man show. And that can be, whatever I'm passionate about. So I'm passionate about truth and freedom and all these things. So I do those things in the video game because that's what I'm passionate about. But that's, at the highest level, God's in control. below that, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Like some people think they're aliens. I don't even know. But there's definitely different entities on different dimensional levels that are definitely doing things. And I think in this matrix, they control most of these sort of leaders and people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all these people. They kind of control them all through whatever means.
Yeah, we often hear about the demiurge from the Gnostics, the Nephilim in the Bible, the Anunnaki in Mesopotamia. So you hear all these different, I appreciate that. And
yeah, every single older society or culture talked about this stuff. So you have to think, well, if every single one did, there must be something to it. And the thing that's really interesting now is look at how they're trying to wipe out all the past knowledge.
Yeah.
They're trying to get everything digital now, and then once it's digital, and we've already seen they'll actually change the books once they're digital, so they're getting rid of all the old knowledge. What are they doing? They're burning down Syria, they're burning down Iraq. That's where a lot of that old knowledge was. They want us to forget about the actual true history of this world, and put us into this new technocratic transhuman future where we all become robots, because the things that control these people are very anti-human. They hate humans. And I think they kind of hate humans because humans are so amazing. They can be so amazing. They're at their highest level, especially once we remember what we are, we remember we have all these powers and stuff. We're like incredible. And these things are like snakes. They're like lizards, and they have no creativity. But they're really good. They're really good at they're really intelligent. They're really good at mimicking anything that we can do and actually fooling us with it. And they actually live off of humanity's lower level energy. So fear and hate and all these things, they live off of that. Just like in the movie The Matrix. The movie The Matrix is basically like a documentary. That's kind of what's going on here.
Yeah, I have Sophia Stewart coming on in a few. And she's the one that created the Matrix and Terminator. So it's interesting.
I heard that. I actually didn't even know about that until recently. And then I looked into it, and then some people are saying, oh, this person wrote it or that person wrote it. So I'll definitely be curious to see when you have her on to see what she's got to say. Because I have to say, whoever did write it is incredibly knowledgeable and wise about how this world actually works. Up until the last one. I didn't even watch the last one. So once the two Wachowski guys turned into the Wachowski sisters and they put out the last Matrix version, I didn't even watch it. I'm like, well, it's going to be horrible. But the first ones were all just totally awesome and incredibly wise about how this Matrix actually works.
Well, she told me that the secret societies and they all know of her really well, but the public don't know of her. So,
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I can't wait to see her on your show.
To leave us on a higher note, what role does spiritual practice play in your life, and what kind of hope can you encourage or encouragement can you leave us with for these crazy times?
Well, the word spiritual or spiritual practice to me, I find that just a little weird. To me, everything is spiritual. So what I've been doing for the last 10 years almost is actually meditating a lot and actually looking at myself, seeing all my traumas and my programming and trying to get them all out. And as I've been doing that, it's taken years and years, I get more and more connected to the source, to the creator. And then I start feeling, these incredible feelings and I can actually see what this actually really is more. So, is that my spiritual practice? I don't know. It's just something I've been doing, and it's been awesome. And actually now, I actually meditate less and less, I have to say. But when I say that, what I mean is I might only meditate for 1 or 2 hours a day now, where I actually sit or lie down and actually really be in that meditative state for an hour or two. But what I do now, the reason I don't do it as much anymore is because most of the day now, I'm actually still in that meditative state. So I've actually gotten enough control over my mind and gotten outside of it enough that I can be in that meditative state most of the time. Even right now, this is a flow state for me. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say. This is just coming out. So this is also like a meditative state, even right now. Even when I'm done, I might have a thought. I might think when I'm done, okay, what time is it? Do I have an appointment or something? But as soon as that's done, I go back to like a meditative state. So basically, I'm mostly present and living in the now, which to me, I consider to be like the only way to actually live. If you're not doing that most of the time, you're actually not living. You're actually just doing programs. So my spiritual practice, I don't know. That's what I do every day, and I actually don't make any plans either. So it's not like I go, well, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go meditate. No, but it just turns out that most of the time that's what I end up doing. But I also just live completely in the moment now. So whatever happens in life, I just go with it. I'm basically almost always in a flow state. So I don't know if you call that a spiritual practice or what you call that. But I will say when I think about people and spiritual practices and stuff like that, the only thing that I'm basically confident of is that all of the answers, everything you need to know is inside of you, and nothing is actually outside of you. And so when you look at the organized type religion type stuff, a lot of the times it's like, well, you have to go to this church, you have to listen to this guy, you have to read these books, all that kind of stuff. And in some ways, that's probably okay, and it's probably fine. And everyone has their own experience or whatever. But all of the answers are actually all inside of you. If you just spend enough time looking for them and being silent and actually asking for the answers, they will come to you. So, yeah. So the idea of a spiritual practice, I don't even really know what that is, but I'm just kind of like living that every day.
Yeah, I agree. It's like second nature, just trying to apply principles and being a better person and really utilizing the intuition within myself and going within. I think that's what the Gnostics called self-knowledge, gnosis, and that comes automatically when you go within.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on. I wish I could have asked you about the Jeff Epstein Island, but I know we ran out of time, so I appreciate you.
It's a pretty short story. We were just passing by with some friends going through the Caribbean, and someone said, "Hey, let's try to sneak onto Jeffrey Epstein's island." So we did. Yeah, so it's a pretty short story anyway.
No problem. I'm going to end it with the William Cooper quote, and it's funny that you mentioned him in this talk. So he says, "We must learn to accept individual responsibility for the world's problems, or be willing to live by the terms of those who do." Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you. Appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a play. Any given subject, know we make a way. Time to level up on the day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.